Hello and welcome to the December issue of Michigan Gardener. It's not quite December 2022, but it's gonna be soon, and I have to film this in November because I just got these. I have 5 of these and I've been waiting all year for them. This is called the Dracula plant, or another name for it is voodoo lily. Another name for it is dragon lily. The Latin name is Draculanus vulgaris, and it grows a maroon flower with a big black pistil, and they grow 3 to 4 feet tall. Blooms in kind of late spring, early summer, and you plant them 6 inches deep, about a foot apart. Now, the interesting thing about this plant is that it smells like rotten meat, but only for 24 hours. So, you know, it's one of those things. So what it does is it makes this stink, and it's pollinated. The flies and beetles and things follow that pistil down into the plant, and then they run around in there and they can't get out because the walls get sticky. And then so they run around in there and they end up pollinating it whether they like it or not. And after 24 hours, those walls are less sticky, and then they can escape and go free. But it's a really neat looking plant with a really neat looking story, and that's why I waited so long. I got these from MichiganBulb.com. That's just sawdust, by the way. So it looks like from this, it looks like it wants to be planted with this up. Because there's some. Oh, maybe it's that down. Well, anyway, I know this one's alive because there's roots coming out of there, and so we'll get this planted, and we'll just plop it in the hole there and cover it up. Easy peasy. And then hopefully next spring 5 of those will come up and I can show it. It'll be a nice cluster here that I can see from the house. We've had our first snow, and it should be becoming apparent, if it isn't already, why we went to the trouble with that center woods. deck the halls with balls of holly. 'Tis the season to be jolly. I don't think it's big enough this year.
No, it's not.
Well, next year I'll get the 14-footer instead of the 12.
It's you.
Is it as big as the one last year?
No, almost. Not even close. Well, here we are with a beautiful Christmas flower called an Amaryllis. Amaryllis is named for a Greek shepherdess by that name, and she shed her blood for true love, and so they're traditionally red flowers that bloom around the holidays. The name Amaryllis comes from the Greek word amarisso, which means to sparkle, and they really do sparkle. One thing that I didn't know about Amaryllis is that you can get multiple blooms from one bulb, and once this flower, which is already in bloom, stops blooming, all you do is cut it with a sharp knife down at the base of the bulb, and it should continue to regrow. Amaryllis come in all different colors. Traditionally, I saw red and white, but our local garden center had a whole rainbow of colors. And today we're going to plant our own. This one we bought already blooming. We're going to plant a white one that is speckled in red. It kind of looks like a peppermint. It's really pretty. So I'm going to cut the outer protection off of the bulb and walk you through how to pot your own Amaryllis. This is something that you would normally do in about November. So we're a little bit late. We're a month late. It's December 5th today. So we have a bulb here that's already going to start producing a bloom. You want a pot that is no bigger than 6 inches diameter, so this should work very well. And we're going to start by putting 2 inches of soil into the bottom of the pot. And then all you do is fill in along the sides. You want to make sure that the roots are kind of spread out a little bit without damaging them. Stick them in the pot. You're going to fill in with extra soil around the side. We're using this Fertilome, which was next to the Amaryllis bulbs at the garden center, and it's good for bulb flowers and other indoor plants. You do not want to fill it too full. It said on the instructions to cover the bulb with soil about 2/3. This one is potted by the garden center, and they did it to right about here, so I'm going to copy them. And I think about 1 more scoop should do it. Then what you're going to do is soak this once with lukewarm water, and you're going to place it on a very sunny windowsill. And then it should start blooming. We've already got 1 flower stalk appearing. You want to water a little bit more regular once you have a stalk that is going to bear a bloom. But if you are planting a bulb that has not started to produce a stalk, you soak it 1 time, being careful not to get the top of the bulb wet, and then you kind of leave that alone for the rest of the month of November. Then in December, at the beginning of December, you would put it onto your windowsill, and you would go ahead and water it sparingly. Once the flower starts to appear, you water it a little bit more often, but they do not like to sit in water or become soggy. And then once it blooms, you treat it like a house plant. They recommend fertilizing every 7 to 14 days. An interesting fact about Amaryllis is that this bulb will routinely live and produce flowers for 25 years, and some people have even passed bulbs down for 50 plus years, and they will continue to produce blooms if you take care of them properly. You're going to treat it as a house plant all through spring. Once summer comes in June, you can move it outside if you choose, or you can continue to treat it as a house plant. In September, you want to bring it indoors and put it in a cold, dark place for at least 6 weeks, and then you start over again in November.
Better late than never, I guess. We need to finish our path through these woods here. I think we'll just take it like right out that way, right?
Yeah, that looks good.
So basically we've got this stuff, and I attempted to kill the weeds in front of us, but really nothing of substance happened because they just weren't really growing all that fast. And one of the things about those glyphosate weed killers and stuff is that the plants have to be in a growth phase, so the best time to use those is like spring and early summer while the plants are still actively growing, but even then sometimes it just doesn't work. So, well, you ready?
Yep. Eating something.
All right, well, let's do it.
All right.
Do we anchor it before the cut, right?
No, we want to cut first, and usually, yeah.
It'd be here if you want to turn that way, right?
Yeah.
All right. A little bit more, I think. There. All right. And then we'll have to unroll a little bit more. And then you pin that, right?
Yes.
All right. Now, as a special treat, I'm going to take you on a visit to one of 3 Florida botanical gardens that I saw. So over the next couple months, I'll show you the other 2. All right. I've taken a little trip down to the Florida Botanical Gardens. I'm here mainly to kind of see how they put things together. They're in a much different growing zone than we are, and I can't grow any of this where I live, so if I see something interesting, I'll be sure to show you, and I'm hoping to see an alligator at some point. Well, I'm not even really officially in the place yet, but I've already seen something that I kind of like. I like how they did this border. These are all impatiens, but you see how they've done them in kind of lines with varying colors, and then it's backed by a hedge. Now that hedge is something I can't grow. That's called Coontie palm, but I could probably do a similar look to this, and I'm gonna have some pretty significant areas to fill in next year. Obviously that would have to be replanted just about every year, the impatiens, but I could manage something like this. Wow, wouldn't I love to be able to grow that? That palm there is called a pygmy date palm. You can see it's got some neat structure on the trunk there, but I like how they did this with a low kind of centerpiece there that you can change out with a kind of medium level head and some height in the bed. Now this is going to be an area that's going to attract a lot of butterflies, and I can see why they call this a butterfly crossing. That's a giant milkweed. That I don't think is ever going to grow where we live. There goes a monarch. See? But they've got other milkweed kind of scattered throughout here that I'll show you in a minute. but a lot of plants that, some of these we can actually grow, but not a lot. There goes another monarch. But see, there's actual milkweed over there, and that grows, but Gretchen is very intolerant of it. I might put a little patch in out by my veg garden, but all of this sort of stuff, you can see bees in there. All of this kind of planting really is good for attracting pollinators and things to your garden. And I like how they've done this. It kind of looks a little overgrown, but that's because we're kind of late in the season. You know, you have some lower areas, some medium areas, and then back there you've got a Texas olive tree that provides some height to this bed. Off to the left there, they're doing some constructions. They're putting in a new section of the park. This is just kind of a natural pond area. It's amazing how they're able to keep it so free of weeds and such. Anytime you have a pond, you're going to attract some wildlife. Let's see if I can get on him. There he is. Look at him. Isn't that a beautiful bird? We have quite a bit of terrain like this right within half a mile of where we live, and we tend to attract blue herons. There's another instance of when you have water. This is kind of a natural little pond here. You're going to get wildlife. Earlier I saw a turtle down there. That's a beautiful bird. The name of that bird is a hinga. It's common throughout Florida and then all the way down into South America, especially Brazil. I've seen those before. A common name for that is snakebird, and that's because when they swim, only that nice long neck is above water. So it looks like a snake swimming in the water. Growing on this tree here is Spanish moss, or old man's beard. Now that's an air plant. There really aren't any roots on it, and that I could probably grow if I grew inside, like if I had a nice greenhouse, or if I had a really sunny spot in my house. There are people that grow that just randomly in their house in the UK. Maybe not exactly that species, but others. You'll find that just growing wild all throughout the southern US, just randomly on trees like that. And this area is fairly typical of what kind of these swampy, boggy areas in Florida look like. I've been seeing these plants just about everywhere I've gone, and it seems like they've left a lot of this native. That big, huge pine tree up there, you see how long those needles are? They're like at least 6 to 8 inches long, each of those needles, and that's called a longleaf pine, and you see those all over the place down here, at least in this part of the state. Another tree you see everywhere tucked in with that longleaf pine is this cabbage palmetto. Another thing I couldn't grow, but kind of neat when you see it in a environment like this where it's kind of supposed to be. Now there's something I've seen growing. Those little shorties are pineapples. And I've actually grown those in the house. If you take the top of a pineapple like that and plunk it down in some water, it'll eventually root. And then if you put it in pots, it'll eventually grow like this. I never got a fruit because it takes forever, but it is possible even from a grocery store pineapple to grow something like that. And this tree here is called the jackfruit, and I've seen something similar to that, if not that identical thing, in Peru before. But I think it's supposed to be native to India, but I'm not sure. Those are just a few of the things that I saw on my visit. I hope you got something out of it. It's always good to visit a different garden. If you're into gardening, you can always take some inspiration. Real close by to the botanical centers is the historic Columbia restaurant. It's the oldest continuously run restaurant in Florida, the largest Spanish restaurant in the entire world, and it's fantastic. The waiters all wear tuxedos. This place started as a saloon in 1903 and then expanded into a restaurant in 1905. They're famous for a bunch of different things, one of which is their 1905 salad, which I had, and I split it with a half Cuban sandwich. Cuban sandwiches in Tampa are way different than in other places. In Miami, you'll have mayo, pork, ham, pickles, and mustard, and they press it. Here, it's no mayo, and it goes ham, pork, salami, pickles, and mustard. Absolutely no mayo. In Key West, they make one that isn't pressed, and it comes with lettuce and tomatoes.
It's mid-December, and we have discovered a problem with our spring planters.
Go.
The first thing we need to do is correct the problem. We have some squirrels that are digging up our spring bulbs, so I'm going to put this back in, smooth it over, and dress the top with more grit. We're going to solve the problem with the squirrels by taking some hardware cloth that you can buy at the hardware store or your garden center, and we're going to cut just some pieces to fit over the tops of the planters and then top with rocks.
Yeah.
It's going to have to be cut.
I think it'll be all right. We'll put a rock on it and it'll stay on. Next one we won't cut so big.
This should do it. We will remove this once we see some signs of life out of the bulbs in the spring.
Well, we're in the middle of a blizzard, and it's Christmas Eve, and I thought I would give our deer a little Christmas present, even though they are shits and they chew up my garden. I figured if we put it clear back here, it should be okay. This is where most of the traffic in the yard comes anyway, back here. Kind of crisscrosses. So that was $9 at Tractor Supply. Money well spent. Like I was saying, it's Christmas Eve. It's a blizzard. I hope that you and yours have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and you have a great next year for gardening. We'll be back in January with some extra stuff. Not sure exactly what it's all going to be, but I'm sure we'll come up with something entertaining for you. And that's it for the 2022 gardening season. Bye.